So we all have our favorite treasured, hoarded fabric gems that seem like they are too special to use, that we don't want to cut into. But today we are going to let them shine, and we're going to create something beautiful and usable, and most importantly, finished to feature these fabrics. So we're going to make a Quilt-as-you-Go log cabin pillow to use some fussy cuts from my favorite fabric prints. And this is something you can make in just a couple of hours. Truly a weekend finish. So let's get started. So if you watched my last video, that was the video where I fussy cut some of my very favorite prints to pull out their special pictures. Then you watched me cut out these little juice boxes from my juicy fabric from Melody Miller at Ruby Star Society. And this is one of those fabrics that people hoard or collect, we'll say is the nicer term. And this is a fabric that I would collect if I had a way. And I like to use a project like this to help me let it see the light of day, help it shine in its intended form. So this is what we're going to be using today, these fussy cut bits for the center of our log cabin pillows. So we need our fussy cut bits. We're going to need some fabrics to set it off, and I've already cut mine. But with a Quilt-as-you-Go project, you actually don't need to cut these to an exact size. So I did for this one, but I'll talk about that in a minute. You also need your batting and your backing, and this is what is going to make it a Quilt-as-you-Go. So I've already got, I think it was 20 inches of batting on a little over 20 inches of some backing fabric. And this is fabric that's not going to be seen because this is going to be a pillow. It's going to have a completely different pillow back. And this is just the backing for the quilted part on the front. So those are the materials you're going to need. Now, Quilt-as-you-Go can mean a couple different things, but in this context, it means that we are piecing our pillow top directly onto the batting. So when we're sewing it directly onto the batting, that means we don't actually have to separately quilt it. So the quilting will already be done. And I'm gonna add some extra special quilting after I'm done, just for decorative purposes, to put some fun color thread on there, but you don't need to. When you piece it directly onto the batting, it's already quilted. So that makes it a really quick project because you don't have to finish all your piecing and then have the extra step of quilting it. We're gonna swish those two together and quilt as we go. So I've also got my iron here set up. I've got a hot iron, and because I am gonna be using that iron directly on a quilted piece that has batting, I've made sure to use natural fiber batting. You're not going to want to use polyester batting for this, or 80-20 or any of those. So this is a bamboo and cotton blend. Maybe it's a bamboo and silk blend. Either way, natural fibers, they're not going to melt under my iron. But I also, just in case, to protect my iron, I have a little pressing cloth, which, I mean, I think it's just a piece of poplin, cotton poplin or something, and I think you can use just regular cotton and lay it over when you're pressing too. And that is gonna protect your iron from melted batting fibers. So this is natural fiber batting. You're gonna wanna use that, but you are gonna need an iron when you're making a log cabin like this. I mean, when do you not iron in quilting? I feel like quilting is 50% ironing at least, or 50% pressing rather. So the first thing I'm gonna do to make my log cabin pillow is I'm gonna fold this in half and just kind of finger press it in the center, and then fold it in half again, press it. And this is gonna tell me what the center of my pillow is. So I've left a couple inches on each side obviously, so that I have enough space to cut this down at the end, but I don't want to be off by so much that even that gets eaten up. So we want to put our center block, our feature fussy cut block, in the center that I've just marked by folding it. So I got that. Now, if you want to press this too, so that you can line up, you know, the center of each side so that you're on a right angle, so this is really well centered, you can do that. I'm probably just gonna eyeball it. Because eyeballing is very on brand for me. There we go. So I've just placed it in the center, and I'm gonna take my first piece that I have already cut. I'm using 2.5-inch strips. So my first round that I'm gonna do is gonna be my 2.5-inch strip cut down into a 3.5-inch piece. Because if you watched the video last time, maybe I should have mentioned that, I cut these into 3.5-inch squares because that's how I could fit in a whole juice box. 3.5-inch square, I'm gonna use a 2.5-inch strip cut down to 3.5 inches long. Now, if I didn't want to cut them all ahead of time, I could just rough cut it, and then after I piece it onto here, I could trim it. That's fine too. Or you can sew right over it. When it's quilt-as-you-go, it's real loosey-goosey. Your measurements don't have to be exact. You're gonna piece over everything in layers. So I'm just gonna piece this first one down, and I have my regular foot on here, but I'm gonna probably switch that up after this, because I would say a walking foot is gonna make this easier, or an even feed foot. If you have a walking or even feed foot for your machine, use that for quilt-as-you-go, because you are quilting or you're piecing with 3 layers here. You've got your backing, you've got your batting, and you've got whatever fabrics you're sewing together on the top. So just a walking foot is going to make those all go through a lot more evenly. So I'll switch that in a second. All right. And I have an automatic cutter on my thread cutter on my machine, but otherwise you just pull that out of your machine and trim the threads. So here it is. So this is already pieced directly on the batting. So you can see that it doesn't need any more quilting. You've just quilted it at the same time that you have pieced it. And like I said, I'm gonna go over it again with some additional quilting, but that just cuts out a step if you don't wanna do that. So I'm gonna use my iron to press this. And I'm gonna do another 3.5-inch piece on the other side. Press that too. Ta-da! Now you can see when I'm getting to my next strip, and technically this is probably like a courthouse steps block because I'm doing a log cabin, but it's gonna be in like rings or rounds rather than 2 of the same on this side, 2 of the same on this side. So I think when you do them on opposite sides and then opposite sides, that's probably technically courthouse steps. But you know what? We're gonna call it a log cabin because we can do what we want. So now that I'm putting on my next piece, I don't have to trim anything to make it even. I just have to make sure that my piece is laid on straight. So because I already like pre-cut my strips here, you can't see how easy this is. But if these were uneven, if I had some extra fabric coming off of the top of this block on the sides, it wouldn't matter because I'm just gonna sew my stitch here really straight, even with this top row. So I feel like for log cabin blocks, they can often come out really wonky as your rows get increasingly large, or as your, you know what I'm talking about. As everything gets bigger and bigger, your rows can get really uneven. But when you're doing quilt-as-you-go, it's a lot more flexible. Very forgiving. And I can tell that this already needs a walking foot, that's gonna make this so much easier. but I'm almost there. I've almost got an entire single frame on this. So I'm gonna switch to a walking foot and then we'll do the rest of our rings. I got one full frame on. So I did the two sides first, and then I did the top and the bottom, and I'm gonna do that again. And I'm maybe even gonna start a second one. I've got another 20-inch square over here. Maybe I'll just start a second one. So, okay, not only have I gotten the second round done on this one with the warm colors, but I did start a second one in cool colors with my blue juice box, and I've already got the first round on. So when I said that you could do these in a weekend, I don't think I was exaggerating. I think I'm gonna get 2 of them done just this afternoon, which is fantastic. Let those juice boxes shine, you know? We're gonna give them their moment. So I've been sewing 2 strips on at once, you know, either the 2 side strips or the top and the bottom, and then pressing them open really well so that they're nice and smooth for when I do my second optional layer of quilting. And now I'm gonna do the second round on this one. And we're already on the 3rd round of this one. I'm finishing my 3rd round, and you can see there's really only room for one more round on this pillow, on the warm colored pillow. And I'm pressing my 2nd round on the other pillow. I think you can see what I mean about this being a very forgiving way to do things. Because even though you can see what I'm talking about with sort of the shuffling over of the fabric, it has extended out on these sides, even though if I were piecing this, these were properly cut at the right size and they would match up if I were just regularly piecing this. But because I am piecing it onto here, it's not going to stretch, so things get shuffled. But you can see that it still looks straight and even. So it's just not gonna be an exact 19.5-inch square, which is what I measured the pieces to be. And that's okay, because this is gonna be an 18-inch pillow. So I've accounted for the fact that things get a little shuffled and aren't gonna be the exact sizes that they would otherwise be. But everything's still gonna look straight and even on the final product. So it's very forgiving. You can just slap those pieces on there, sew your line, and not worry, it's gonna turn out great. All right, and just like that, we have all, how many did I fit? 4 rounds done on the warm pillow. I have 1 more to go on the other one. You can see that despite any uneven stitching or pieces that didn't quite line up because they got moved and shuffled, this is all very straight and even. And you can also see that it is already quilted to the backing, because we stitched the pieces directly onto the batting and backing, but I'm actually going to add some extra decorative stitches on the edges, just in boxes following the lines of these strip boxes. And I'm going to use maybe a peach thread for most of it, and then maybe a bright pink one for this outer box, so that you've got some decorative stitches that you can see from the very front. And I'm almost done with the second one. And I think I could probably just do all 5 of my little juice boxes today. Get 5 of those for 5 lovely people. Okay, I put my extra quilting on both of my Quilt-as-you-Go pillow pieces. Then I took my backing fabric, because I want this to be an entirely soft, squishable pillow. Took my backing fabric and I attached some fusible fleece. I get all of these names confused. This is fusible fleece to make it a little thicker, a little sturdier, but still squishy. And I put it right sides together with my pillow top. And then I went all around the sides, leaving most of the bottom open. I just did like an inch over here or 2 inches over here, all the way around, another 2 inches on the bottom here. And then I trimmed my corners. And so now I can just turn it inside out. I love this part. It's like I'm seeing it for the first time, even though I definitely saw it from beginning to end. I'm gonna use my little stiletto, little pointy bit, to make the corners nice and, I don't know, pointy? Cornery? Get them all unstuck. Lovely. And then I am gonna seal up the pillow inside of here. So with the other one, you can see I've already put the pillow in and I pressed my seams at the bottom, and now I clipped it all together, and I'm just gonna stitch along the bottom, and we'll see if that's the way I like it to look. And if I want it to look more even, if I have a row of stitching at the bottom, I might go around the whole thing and give just a little itsy bitsy top stitch all the way around the edge. We'll see. But otherwise, then we have a nice, soft, whole backing with no zippers or anything poking out. Beautiful. I love it. Surprise. I think it looks great with just the bottom sealed up. I didn't do a stitch around the rest of it. I think it looks great. And look at how beautifully featured that little juice box is. It's in a usable, finished project that I can now put on my sofa or give as a gift. And it's all finished. Better than sitting in my fabric stash indefinitely. Bye.